So the next audiobook, hey guys, it's Kasera, and today I'm going to be talking about my favorite audiobook narrators. I've been doing a lot of vlogs where I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and I realized there are several audiobook narrators that I just absolutely love. So I'm gonna have like two sections of this. The first one is a section where I've listened to multiple audiobooks from this narrator, and I consider them to be one of my favorite narrators. And then the second one is a section where I've only listened to one audiobook or audiobook series by this narrator, but I like them so much that they're kind of honorable mentions for me. So I really want to read other books by them, but I haven't done it yet. So I can't really say they're one of my favorites yet, but overall, I think they could definitely make that list in the future if I listen to more audiobooks narrated by them. So we're gonna start out with my favorite audiobook narrator, like number one, like the one that I wish did more audiobooks just so that I can listen to them because it's just fantastic every time I listen to one of his books. And that's Jim Dale. I absolutely love Jim Dale. He has just this lyrical quality to his narration that I just absolutely love, and he does different voices very, very well. He does the audiobook narration for the Harry Potter series, and McGonagall and Dumbledore, Hagrid, all of their voices are so well done. He does have a little bit of a deep voice though, so some of those higher voiced characters like Ginny and Hermione aren't the best, but overall I really love his narrations. A couple other examples of books that you can pick up that are narrated by Jim Dale is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, which I highly recommend the audiobook for. I absolutely love that audiobook. I've listened to it twice now and it's fantastic. I actually recently did a review of that, so I'll link that up in the cards for you guys, but it is so good. The other one that I've listened to by him is Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. I know there's multiple narrations of it, but I absolutely love the narration with Jim Dale because it's fantastic. So the next audiobook narrator that I absolutely love is Simon Vance. Now Simon Vance does a lot. Like he has over 200 audiobooks that he has narrated, and he has some of my favorite series. So I recognized recently that he does the audiobooks for the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series, which I read this year and absolutely loved. And I actually wait for the audiobooks from my library rather than reading the physical books because I have the physical books, but I love the audiobooks so much and his adaptation of the book so much that I have to have the audiobook. And what's great about his voice is that it's not as deep, so he has more of like a general voice, so you don't really expect it, and it's just like easy to listen to. He has one of those voices that's just so easy to listen to, and he does female voices a little bit better, I actually think. He does like multiple voices also. His like different voices aren't as unique, but like just his inflections and all of that are so well done that I really enjoy it. The other audiobooks that I've listened to by him is the Lightbringer series by Brent Weeks, which is fantastic. One of my favorite fantasy series. Also, Fire and Blood by George R.R. Martin is narrated by Simon Vance as well. And The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde is another audiobook by him that I read this year that I absolutely loved. So the next audiobook narrator that I want to talk about is Paul Boehmer. Paul Boehmer. I absolutely love Paul Boehmer. The two series that I've listened to that he narrated are the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb and the Underland Chronicles by Suzanne Collins, which are very different series. Like the Farseer trilogy is a high fantasy set in a completely different world that is meant for adults, and the Underland Chronicles is a middle grade sort of fantasy, maybe fantasy, not really sure, but it's meant for children, like the ages 12 or something like that. And I didn't even realize that they were narrated by the same person until I like went through and investigated who narrated them, because they're so differently done. Like his voice sounds completely different in the Farseer trilogy versus the Underland Chronicles. I definitely want to listen to more audiobooks by him because I just feel like his voice range is so wide. He has the ability to narrate many different types of audiobooks, and he does a really good job with them as well. The next one I want to talk about is Santino Fontana. So I first was introduced by Santino Fontana last year when I read You by Caroline Kepnes. He is fantastic. I absolutely love his pacing specifically. Like, he moves faster and slower depending on like the emotions that are going on with the narration. And I think he does second person point of view really well as well, because I recently listened to the audiobook for The Deal of a Lifetime by Frederick Bachman, which is also narrated by Santino Fontana, and he just did an awesome job with it. And there's a pretty big section there as well that is in second person point of view, and I just absolutely loved it. Honestly, like, I feel like You by Caroline Kepnes is one of those books that I would not have liked it if I read it physically, but because the audiobook is just so well produced, I ended up giving it 5 stars just because there's so much emotion. And like I said, just his pacing of the emotional heights and lows is just so well done, and I absolutely loved it. The next one I want to talk about is the Wheel of Time series narrators, which are Michael Kramer and Kate Redding. First, I will talk about Michael Kramer because I've been listening to the Wheel of Time series for a while now, and at the very beginning, I was a little disappointed by the narrators, but like, they're slowly growing on me with each and every book, and I feel like they do just a fantastic job. I really want to talk about Michael Kramer specifically with The Grace of Kings, because The Grace of Kings, again, is one of those books that I feel like I would have DNF'd if it wasn't for the audiobook narrator. He just did such a good job in portraying all of the different characters that are in that story, because there's just so many different characters. And while most of them are male characters, there are quite a few female characters as well that he has to portray in that story, and I think he did a fantastic job of that. And while I did think he was a little stiff at the beginning of the Wheel of Time series, specifically in The Eye of the World, I just feel like he's grown so much as an audiobook narrator that I can't not mention him on this list. Because of course, The Eye of the World was published like, I think in the 80s, and The Grace of Kings is a much more modern book. So like, it's been years, so he's definitely grown so much as a narrator, and I think he just does such a fantastic job, and I would love to listen to more books by him. The other one that I mentioned is Kate Redding, and she's one of those narrators that I've only read one series by her, which is the Wheel of Time series, and I would definitely love to listen to more books that she's narrated. She has like kind of a lower voice on the lower end of the spectrum for female voices. That actually makes it easier for me to listen to, because some of those higher female voices are kind of hard to listen to when it comes to audiobooks because they get kind of screechy. But her voice is fantastic, and I absolutely love it. So on to some of the honorable mentions of audiobook narrators that I've only read one book or series by, but still absolutely love. The first one is Heather ONeil. She does the audiobook narrations for the Book of the Ancestors trilogy by Mark Lawrence, and she may be one of my favorites of all times. I absolutely love her different accents that she uses, and she just has this way of drawing you into the story that is just so beautiful, and her emotions and her inflections just draw you into the story and make you forget about anything else that's going around you. So I absolutely love that by it. And I know specifically, like, I read Red Sister, the first book in that series, physically, and then I switched to the audiobook for the second book, Gray Sister, and it was just like I was reading a completely different book. I mean, yes, it was a completely different book, but it just felt like a completely different experience because she just did such a good job with the narration. The next audiobook narrator that I want to mention is Imogen Church. So I listened to the audiobook for In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware last year, and honestly, it was the first audiobook that I was just really like, oh my gosh, this is so good. Even though I didn't actually care for the book itself that much, it was the experience of listening to the audiobook and the narrator's voice. Imogen Church is the narrator, obviously, of this book, and she does it in a British accent, first of all, but she has a way of narrating it that I just, like, I would listen to her voice and not actually hear the words that she was saying, which is bad, I know, but like I just wanted to listen to her voice because it was just so like nice in my ears, and I definitely absolutely loved her narration of it. She did such a good job, and she's also one of those that like speeds up and slows down at just the perfect times. She has great pacing, and I don't actually know if she's done other audiobooks. I really hope that she has, because I really, really want to pick up another one of hers. And last but not least is the first audiobook narrator that I've ever actually listened to, and that's Davina Porter, who narrates the Outlander series. I think she does a fantastic job. I love her accents. She does a lot of different accents, especially for the Outlander series, because you got the Scottish accent, you got the English accent, and there's like almost like an American accent there sometimes, and it's fantastically done. And like that's a pretty difficult to get all those different accents in, and she does it so beautifully, and I absolutely love it as well. And I actually just realized this, but she actually narrated another audiobook that I listened to, which was Invasion of the Tearling by Erica Johansson, which is a YA book, which I was a little worried about it at first, because the first book in that series, Queen of the Tearling, kind of annoyed me because it's about a 19-year-old girl, but it was very obviously an older woman who was narrating the audiobook, which Davina Porter is also not a teenage girl, obviously. But in the second book, which Davina Porter was the one who narrated it, I didn't get the feeling like that I did from the first book. Like, it felt like I was getting the narration from the teenage girl perspective, which is really hard to do when you have like a more mature voice. So I definitely respect that skill, and I highly, highly recommend her as an audiobook narrator. So those are all the audiobook narrators that I absolutely love. Let me know down in the comments if you've listened to any books by them, and if you agree with me, because I feel like some of those are a little controversial. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. I post videos frequently on this channel, so consider subscribing. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up to support my channel. All social media links are in the description down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!